Hello friends, welcome to the Hindu News Analysis presented by La Excellence IAS. Today we are going to discuss 25th June 2020 Hindu newspaper. In today's personality of the day, we are going to know about Duvuri Subbarao IAS. He is well-known Indian economist, central banker and a retired IAS officer. Duvuri Subbarao served 22nd Governor of Reserve Bank of India under Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. Presently, he is living in Singapore and he is a distinguished visiting faculty at National University of Singapore. To have a look over his early life, he is from Eluru in West Godavari district, Andhra Pradesh. He did his schooling from Sainik School in Korukonda, Andhra Pradesh. He graduated in physics, BSc Honours from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. He received MSc degree also in physics from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Subbarao topped the civil service examination in 1972 and was assigned the Andhra Pradesh cadre. Speaking about his achievements, during his tenure as governor of RBI, he took many initiatives for demystification of central bank, including lucid presentation of terse macroeconomic concepts in the RBI publications and grassroots level interaction with the masses through various financial inclusion, financial literacy and village outreach programs. Subbarao was instrumental in ensuring 100% meaningful financial inclusion in Ernakulam district of Kerala. In 2012, Subbarao expounded his famous theory on the new trilemma of central bankers, which he named as Holy Trinity of price stability, financial stability, and sovereign debt sustainability as against Mundel's well-known impossible trinity. Dr. Subbarao took charge as an RBI governor in 2008, which was a financial sub-crisis, was coincidentally global financial crisis. Subbarao generally was credited as having safely stewarded Indian economy through the financial crisis. However, it was during his tenure that the value of Indian rupee tumbled spectacularly. The exchange rate for the first time breaching the psychological barrier of 60 and even hitting a new low of 69. In today's list of articles for discussion, we will be looking of 4 editorials. For those respective page numbers and editions are being given here. And in targeted news analysis, we will be going after 4 articles. For those respective page numbers and editions are given here. An announcement before we start: in order to get the notes in PDF format and free LAX daily current affairs quiz every day at 9:30 p.m. you can join at Civils Prep at La Excellence. This is the link where you have to join for Telegram channel in order to get all the UPSC materials and current affairs quiz details also. Today's deep article: China, Kashmir and the ghost of August 5th. So August 5th, here speaking about Jammu Kashmir Reorganization Act. So entirely reorganization of Jammu Kashmir has impacted relations with China and Pakistan, and India needs to clear headed strategy to deal with it. Is the overall analysis what we are going to make in this article. So the analysis of this article will help us with current events of national and international importance for prelims point of view, and in GS paper 2 India and its neighborhood, it is going to be helpful for our mains. The analysis will help us to know about the impact of Jammu and Kashmir or reorganization on India's relation with Pakistan and China. The entire article we need to understand in the context of August 2019 Jammu and Kashmir, where it was reorganized, and the JNK or reorganization and rhetoric statements like taking back of Aksai Chin has impacted relations with both China and Pakistan. So we will be discussing about the impact of this reorganization act, and the few of the statements made by Home Ministry have led to the crisis or chaos between India and China and how it is going to be affected in relation to Pakistan. We will be discussing in detail. So at first we'll know the importance of Ladakh region, which is strategically important to India to hold over Siachen glacier, otherwise which could compromise security in the western sector. For China, the region is important because of its CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and its access to Central Asia, both of which are part of Belt and Road Grand Strategy of China. So this is the importance of Ladakh region in specific with India's perspective and Chinese perspective. However, the reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir, how it has impacted for Pakistan, if we have to speak, The retired Pakistani official argued that Shimla Agreement of 1972 stands invalid because of unilateral decision of India regarding the disputed area. Shimla Agreement is very important as it laid out line of control, formalizes several territorial changes happened between 1949 and 71. The current ceasefire agreement is essentially reiteration of the ceasefire agreement of 1971. So, in relation to Pakistan, the unilateral changes made by the Indian government with respect to Jammu and Kashmir have led to the changes in the boundary disputes or changes in the boundary areas, which is going to be a point of discontent for Pakistan, is the analysis which is being provided here. And in another way, how it is going to be affected for China, if we have to see that China's unease because of statements regarding Aksai Chin and bringing Ladakh under India's central rule have led to the discontent in China. China took the position that India continued to damage Chinese territorial sovereignty by unilaterally modifying the form of domestic law, and that is unacceptable. Second order consequences of this is that it brought Pakistan and China more closer on the question of Kashmir, where there were few not similarities or where they were not on the same platform. This has led them to come on the same platform and fight against India. China was neutral on Kashmir's question during 90s and 2000s. But this act made China's aggrieved party in Kashmir question as of now. So, how the ghost of August 5th have been related, or how it has led to a chaos or discontent in Chinese dimension or Pakistan's is need to be understood overall here. So overall article will help us that the lessons is self-evident. A country the size of India can ill afford to be narrowly tactical in its foreign and security policy decision making. Geopolitics in southern Asia is changing way faster than we previously imagined, and therefore our decisions should not be made based on tactical and political considerations, but the decision should be based on cold, clear-headed and strategic assessment is the overall ideology or overall analysis of this article. The next article, signaling intent, India needs enhanced manufacturing capabilities and improved efficiencies. So this article we are discussing in the wake that recent decisions on mentioning of country of origin on products in government e-marketplace platform is not well timed. Rather than this is more structural reforms that the need of the hour is the opinion. So however, mentioning of country of origin on the products in the government e-marketplace platform, in that way we are discussing this article. The analysis will help us in the economic development in the prelims perspective, and under mains GS paper 3, effects of liberalization on the economy, changes in industrial policy and their effects on industrial growth. The entire analysis will help us to understand the concept of Atmanirbhar Abhiyan and to know the challenges before India to achieve the objective of Atmanirbhar Abhiyan. At first, we will understand the background of government e-marketplace, where it is a state-of-art national public procurement platform of Ministry of Commerce and Industries that has used technology to remove entry barriers for bona fide sellers and has created a vibrant e-marketplace with a wide variety of goods and services. Government e-marketplace helps us, or the main aim is to enhance transparency, efficiency and speed in public procurement. If we have to see the key features of GEM, first one will be end-to-end system, then second registration authentication, third highly secure, fourth multiple procurement options, fifth complete audit trail, sixth multiple payment options, seventh quick payment, eighth market page, 9th price comparison, 10th notification and 11th training and call support system. So these are the features of the government e-marketplace. With this prior background of understanding, we can see that center made it mandatory for vendors on government e-marketplace procurement platform to specify country of origin of new product listed by them. The platform's administrators have also sought details on the extent of local content and set guidelines on the percentage of localization for enabling procurement in case of bids of specified value. So this prior context or the articles of these conditions which have been mandated over this platform have led for new conceptions or new perceptions to evolve, where the drive for self-reliance and greater localization will be eroding India's industry's global competitiveness by placing a premium on Indianness over quality or cost is one of the challenge which has been put forward. For that matter, for example, Make in India, instead of boost investment in new cutting edge technology driven or export oriented industries, it only taken the countries back to import substitution plants, making goods predominantly for domestic consumption. Weaponization of trade ties will be a double-edged sword, as Indian pharmaceutical industry is heavily dependent on China's active pharmaceutical industries. Overall, the analysis of the article helps us that the overhauling bureaucratic process in order to enhance manufacturing capacities with improved efficiencies and reduced cost, greater investment in education, skill building and infrastructure to attain genuine self-reliant is the way forward of the entire article we hear. The next article here, the many questions about Flavipiravir. So this is in the context that the Drug Controller General of India has approved Glenmark Pharmaceutical and Indian Pharmaceutical Company to sell generic versions of Flavipir for the treatment of COVID-19. This drug, originally invented by Japanese company, was meant to treat influenza. So the analysis of the article helps us to polity and governance in the prelims perspective, and for the mains GS paper 3, awareness in the field of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology and issues relating to the intellectual property rights. The understanding will help us to know about the drug approval process in India and to know the criticism about this process in certain instances. The article we will be discussing under two stages, that is drug approval process in India and flaws in recent approval. So with respect to drug approval process in India, the evidences based medicine requires testing of pharmaceutical drugs through randomized clinical trials. In this, one set of patients gets a placebo or an alternate therapy, what we call, and the other set of patients gets the investigational drug. Neither the doctors nor the patients know who gets what the drug. It will be presumed that the drug has therapeutic effect if investigational drugs shows improvements in patient's condition. The data collected from such clinical trials are usually published in a peer-reviewed journal where they are subject to scientific scrutiny. Subject expert committee decides whether a new drug should be approved for the Indian market. DCGI is required to take the final call. New Drugs and Clinical Trial Rules 2019 allows the DGCI to approve grants for the use of certain drugs based on approvals granted overseas. So overall, in drug approval process, we are speaking about randomized clinical trials process and how the DGCI, Drug Controller General of India, has to take up the final call. However, in this article, we are speaking about the flaws with respect to recent approval of Flavipiravir. Glenmark clinical trials were meant to be carried out on patients with mild symptoms and comparing it with standard care provided to the patient. But mild cases often resolve themselves without any intervention. Further, Clinical Trials Registry of India does not explain the nature of standard care being provided to the patients, which made comparisons difficult. The Japanese regulator which approved this drug for influenza mandated a warning to be printed on the packaging of this drug for early embryo toxicity and tetragenicity, specifically cautioning its use in women in the early stages of pregnancy. There is no information on the DCGI's website explaining the scientific basis of its approval of Flavipiravir for COVID-19. So overall, this article is speaking about the culture of secrecy around drug approvals serves no purpose. The DGCI should make the information public with minute details of SEC meetings. So the overall entire analysis helps us to understand how's the process of drug approval going on in India and what is the recent flaw that is happening and how it has to take it forward. With this, let us move on to the next article. This article, how to battle depression, finding meaning to life through love and work and being socially connected are important. So this is, we are speaking in the recent suicide of famous Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput. So this helps to understand the ways to control anxiety and stress. The analysis of the article will be helpful for social development in terms of prelims, and for GS paper 2, issues relating to development and management of social sector or services relating to health and education and human resources. The analysis of article will help us to know about the depression induced suicides and how to overcome them. Overall, here we need to understand the causes of depression and anxiety and how to manage stress, anxiety and depression. So this article will be discussion will be surrounding under these two headings. So first we should understand the causes of depression and anxiety. The first major reason is engagement with technology and less with people has led to major cause of depression. The interference of media and social media in every aspect of life has been creating a pressure over the personal life. More focus on success rather than the process of learning has made us materialistic rather than dependent on the lively nature. Never ending aspirations, relationship issues, impatience while doing tasks. For this is a generation look for instant gratification. Too many choices and limitations of the human mind to choose wisely have led to confusions and anxiety over the human mindset. Disruptions in the traditional joint family system. There is an underlying strain on the sociocultural fabric which has been led or happening due to Western civilization in influence over the traditional culture. However, all these reasons can be taken under causes of depression, and in the next sector, how to manage this stress and anxiety and depression, if we have to speak, Viktor Frankl, who was detained in the Nazi concentration camps, studied the source of depression and found that it is the lack of meaning in life which leads to depression, anxiety and stress. Individuals who are able to discover meaning tend to achieve the will and strength to endure life. The meaning can be found in love and work. Love for fellow beings is what motivates person to work and take an action. Basing our actions and work on a shared love for family members and society at the large. However, few of the famous personalities like Tagore believed that being socially connected was an antidote for the mental estrangements that plague affected people were undergoing in 1918. Design of togetherness, which Tagore insisted was ingrained in the famous Rigvedic dicta, Yantra Vishwam Bhavati Eki Nadam, where the whole world meets in a single nest, and Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. With these two ingredients, or which are inculcated in the Rigveda, are the lessons for people to understand. Family, relatives and friends need to watch out for signs in their near and dear ones of persistent sadness. Overall, the analysis of the article helps us to understand that the individual should work for society and for themselves so that they are part of communities. The spirit of harmony between individual and society, glue by communication, is the best way we can overcome stress, anxiety and depression. The first TNA article with space reforms private sectors to get level playing field. Union Cabinet approves creation of ION Space. So the analysis of this article will help us for the science and technology in prelims perspective, and for mains GS paper 3 science and technology, space technology. The analysis will help us to know more about ION Space. Before understanding the content of the article, let us go with the backgrounders, where we will understand about Indian Space Research Organization and few of the missions or few of the products developed in collaboration with defense, and about anti-satellite weapons and what are the pros and cons of entry of private players into defense production. So ISRO is a space agency which works under Department of Space. The first Indian spacecraft Aryabhatta was developed and was launched using a Soviet launcher. The first launch vehicle was SLV-3. With respect to achievements, if we have to look after ISRO, INSAT system, Gaganyaan system, IRNSS, Astrosat, Mangalyaan, MOM, which you call Chandrayaan 1 and 2. Apart from this, ISRO also launches various small and student satellites too. So launch vehicles, usually there are two different types of launch vehicles, polar satellite launch vehicle, geostationary launch vehicle. So PSLV delivers the Earth's observation or remote sensing satellites in polar orbit. GSLV delivers the communication satellites to the geosynchronous transfer orbit of about 36,000 km altitude. However, the future plans include manned mission, Adityayaan and Shukrayaan. ISRO and Defense in collaboration developed Mission Shakti, which is known as ASTAT. India completed its first successful attempt to shooting a satellite in low Earth orbit. In doing so, India has become fourth country after US, Russia and China to acquire the capability of space warfare. So Mission Shakti was undertaken to develop highly potent anti-satellite weapons program, that was ASAT. It is a joint developed program of DRDO and ISRO. India will now have the power to disseminate satellite for purely military and strategic purpose. ASAT missile can be air, sea or land based. So in the recent conclusion or recent approval of Union Cabinet giving entry of private players using in-space, it can be assumed that this decision might have come in the wake of recent success of a project by SpaceX. Though India lauded it as low cost completion of projects and highly success rate, when compared to other space agencies, India is significantly lagging. India has good horizontal speed of technology, but the vertical development is also need of the hour. Also, India is in need to efficacy in its network of satellites. However, though ISRO has a reputation of finishing projects in low cost, there are still constraints in allocating funds for non-strategic space projects. However, private sector participation is expected to negate all this. It would be strategically disadvantageous if the private sector is allowed to penetrate too deep into Indian Space Agency. So this gives an analysis or a background understanding of how space sector is presently undergoing in India and what are the advantages and disadvantages with respect to private players participation into defense sector production. With this understanding, let us see the article analysis. As we have got to know that Union Cabinet approved the creation of Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, which was in line with boosting private sector participation in India's space industry, is expected to give private players a new level playing field. It is intended to provide a friendly regulatory environment. This would be a breather to ISRO to focus on new technologies, exploration and R&D, is the opinion of the government. This article, Education Gap Widened UNESCO. Here we are going to discuss the latest report released by UNESCO, which is discussing the inequalities that have risen in the global education sector post-COVID pandemic. However, the issue here is surrounding COVID pandemic effect on education sector. The dimensions will be changes in the trends in education sector, what we are seeing due to this pandemic. Overall, the analysis of this article will help us in prelims, polity and governance and in mains for GS paper 2 issues related to education. The overall analysis will help us to understand the impact of COVID-19 on education sector and to know about UNESCO. Overall, in the article, we are seeing the inequalities in the global education system have turned worse because of this COVID pandemic. In the report, which is released by UNESCO, about 40% of low and lower middle income countries have not supported learners at the risk of exclusion during the crisis. 55% of low income, 73% of middle income, and 93% of upper middle income countries have opted for online classes. India, though, has used a mix of all the three systems for educational continuity. There is a risk in the online facility. The problems, like as we all know, that is internet connection in remote areas, speed of the internet, equipments, and usage skill inadequacy. However, differently abled children and the autistic children are also worst affected. For poor who depends on school for free meals or even for free sanitary napkins, closures have been a major blow. In other words, the cancellation of exams results in teachers' discretion to award marks, which promotes stereotyping. This crisis, as we have seen previously that during Ebola, there have been, or after Ebola crisis, there had been larger rates of dropouts. In the similar way, UNESCO in this report is predicting a major dropout rate might be increasing. To address this, 17% of low and middle income countries are planning to recruit more teachers, 22% are planning to increase class timings, and 68% are trying to introduce remedial classes when schools reopen. So, however, in this overall analysis of the article, we are finding different inequalities in different sectors of education which need to be addressed by the government in respect to their problems. However, in the backgrounders, if we are trying to see, there had been two reports like Global Education Monitoring Report 2020 These kind of reports can be asked in prelims point of view as one word. Which of the following organization comes out with this report? So Global Education Monitoring Report 2020 is released by UNESCO. So in this report, it was highlighted that except high income countries in Europe and North America, only 18 of the poorest youth complete secondary school for every 100 students. In at least 20 countries, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, hardly any poor rural young woman completes secondary school. This discrimination, stereotyping, and stigmatization mechanisms are the reasons for risk of exclusion, what was found in the high income countries and sub-Saharan countries. In another point, it says 68% of countries have a definition of inclusive education. Children with disabilities constitute 15% of the out of school population. Just 41 countries worldwide recognize sign language as an official language. In Europe, as we all know, 23 out of 49 countries do not address sexual orientation and gender identity explicitly in their curricula. So these were the highlights where we saw that in Global Education Monitoring Report, the areas where countries have to still work upon in order to improve the education sector or inequalities what we are finding with respect to different section of students studying in an education field. In another important goal setting, Sustainable Development Goal 4 specifically speaks about education, where we have found disadvantaged groups are kept out of education system, exclusion from curricula, irrelevant learning objectives, stereotyping in textbooks, discrimination in resource allocation and assessments, tolerance of violence and neglect of needs. Contextual factors such as politics, resource and culture also varies according to countries, and balancing education amongst all this is a challenge. System needs to stop labeling learners, a practice adopted on the pretext of easing the planning and delivery of education responses. So overall, here we need to understand the various inequalities over entire globe with respect to education sector in different sectors or groups of students who are need to be inculcated, or inclusive education which needs to be attained. We have Sustainable Development Goal 4, which speaks about primary and secondary education, technical, vocational, tertiary and educational skills for work, equity, adult literacy, educational facilities and learning environments and teachers. The respective targets and objectives are being given. So I request every one of you please go through and make a short note of all the five sectors which have been discussed in Sustainable Development Goal 4, and please comment it. So overall in this article we need to understand the various inequalities which we have found in previous reports, and due to COVID pandemic, what extra has been value added or what extra has led to the worsening of the education sector inequalities which we were already aware in this scenario. In the next article, Pakistan to remain on Financial Action Task Force on Money Laundering Grey List. So this article we are discussing in the view that Pakistan's inability to take an action against terror groups, Pakistan have been made to put in the FATF grey list. So here this FATF grey list is spoken upon the platforms to act against terror financing. So the analysis of this article will help us in prelims context, current events of national and international importance, and in mains GS paper 2, effects of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest, Indian diaspora and international organizations. The overall analysis of this article will help us to know about Financial Action Task Force and to know the reasons why Pakistan is in grey list listed by Financial Action Task Force. Before going into the analysis of the article, first we will understand what is Financial Action Task Force, FATF, and brief history about FATF. So Financial Action Task Force, it is a global money laundering and terror financing watchdog. It is an intergovernmental body that has set up an international standards with an aim to prevent illegal activities like organized crime, corruption and terrorism. It works on cases dealing with illegal drugs, human trafficking and other crimes. It works to stop funding for weapons of mass destruction, and it reviews money laundering and terror financing techniques. Looking at the history, it was established in 1989 at G7 summit. initially to examine and develop measures to combat money laundering. In 2001, FATF expanded itself to combat terrorism financing in addition to money laundering. In 2012, to counter the financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction was also included with an objective of FATF. The members, if we took a look at the members of FATF, all the prominent members of G20 and all UNSC permanent members are part of or members of FATF. GCC and European Commission are also members of FATF. However, FATF observers, if we have to know, those are Indonesia, Asia Pacific Group of Money Laundering is a FATF associated group, African Asian Development Bank, BCBS are observer organizations. Currently, FATF presidency is with China, which ends on 30th June 2020. But still, Pakistan could not manage to pull itself out of the FATF grey list. So we have to understand what is this grey list in particularly. It is considered those countries which are considered as safe haven for supporting terror funding and money laundering are included under this list. Actions against this: economic sanctions from international institutions like IMF, World Bank and economic countries, problem in getting loans from international institutions, overall reduction in international trade. There is another list which is also called blacklist. It is list of countries which FATF considers to be non-cooperative in international fight against terrorists, financing and money laundering, but not those which provide direct support like arms and ammunition supply. So here we need to understand the blacklist does not include countries which fund and money launder to terrorism. So here blacklist and grey list. After this understanding, we can go through the analysis of the article which helps us to understand the given information. So Pakistan is going to continue to remain in FATF grey list until 2020 October. However, it was criticized for inaction against terrorist groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba. Pakistan is said to have allowed various terrorist groups like Afghan Taliban, Haqqani Network, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed to attack Afghanistan and India respectively. The report said Pakistan had played a constructive role in facilitating US talks with Taliban. So this article is overall understanding of what is FATF, what are its objectives and how it has evolved over a period of time from 1989 to till period, and how it is going to help to address the issue of terror financing and money laundering, and where this activity can be stopped. The next article: RBI slams banks NBFCs as digital loan agents cloud flout. So this article we are discussing in the area where RBI has severely criticized the reluctance of the lenders towards the non-compliance of norms by the digital platforms to which these banks outsource the services. So overall analysis of this article will help us in economic and social development in prelims perspective, and in mains GS paper 3 Indian economy and banking this is going to be helpful. The analysis will help us to know about the violations of the fair practices codes by banks and non-banks and RBI's review on it, and it will also help us to understand the NBFCs. Before digging into the article, we will understand about non-banking financial companies and their regulations at first. Then we will understand the entire article. Non-banking financial companies is a company registered under Companies Act 1956. NBFC does not include any institution whose principal business is that of agriculture activity, industrial activity, purchase or sale of any goods or providing any services. To obviate dual regulation, certain category of NBFCs which are regulated by other financial regulations are exempted from the regulatory control of RBI, like venture capital fund, merchant bank, stock broking firms, because these are registered under SEBI and SEBI regulates them. Insurance companies, these are regulated by IRDA. Housing finance companies regulated by National Housing Board. Nidhi company, Ministry of Corporate Affairs under the Companies Act 1956. Chit fund companies, respective state governments under Chit Funds Act 1982. So these are the organizations, or these are institutions which are organized by respective boards. So these will not come under NBFC's regulations. So however, what are the regulations for these non-banking financial companies? These are allowed to expect accept or renew public deposits for a minimum period of 12 months or maximum of 16 months, and they cannot accept demand deposits, that is savings and current accounts, cannot offer interest rates higher than the ceiling rate prescribed by the RBI. It cannot offer gifts, incentives, or any other additional benefits to the depositors. It should have minimum investment grade credit rating. And third, their deposits are not insured. Deposit insurance facility of Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation is not available to the depositors of NBFCs, unlike in case of banks. Repayments of deposits by NBFCs is not guaranteed by RBI. NBFCs do not form part of payment and settlement system and cannot issue checks drawn on itself, and NBFCs need to maintain capital adequacy ratio norm which is prescribed by RBI. NBFCs are categorized as asset finance companies, loan companies, and investment companies, which will be merged into new category called NBFC Investment and Credit Company. So this is the brief background about NBFCs and which all comes under NBFC and which doesn't. Like venture capital funds doesn't come, insurance company doesn't come. So, and what are the regulations for NBFCs have been discussed in detail till now. So in this article we are discussing the since RBI has reviewed and it is trying to ensure compliance in the wake of violation of fair practices code by digital platforms, RBI has severely criticized the banks and NBFCs because these platforms does not display the names of the actual lenders, the banks, and they disguise themselves as lenders, which may result in inaccessibility to the customer to grievance redressal venues. It has also complained of non-transparent methods to calculate interest, harsh recovery measures, unauthorized use of personal data, and bad behavior. It also clarified that the outsourcing the services does not take away the responsibility of the lenders towards non-compliance of the norms. So this article has been discussed in the wake of easy money, what have been done by various apps where we found like easy money, without any documentation you can take loans, and that have led to lot of interest accrual and lot of harassment to the customers, those who have taken, because after this COVID pandemic there was some relaxation given to the loan borrowers from banks for over a period of 3 months, but those facilities were not given at that time. So in that wake, since customers or the borrowers have been facing a harsh treatment by the lenders, this review had been helpful. So however, this review or this new challenges or new accountability measures might bring up a new financial discipline is the hope which is going to be taken forward. At last, we will be going through two prelims questions. The first one will be consider the following regarding clinical trials in India. Statement 1 says it is mandatory to register with Drug Controller General of India. Statement 2, new drugs and clinical trial rules 2019 allows the DCGI to grant approval for the use of certain drugs based on approval granted overseas. Statement 3, new rules 2019 reduced the time for approving applications to 30 days. So we need to find out which of the following statements are correct here. So question number 2, consider the following options regarding government e-marketplace. So government e-marketplace is a state-of-art national public procurement platform of Ministry of Commerce and Industries. Statement 2, to trade under this platform, it is mandatory that 60% of the content should be locally sourced. Here we need to also find out which of the following is right. So at last, La Excellence IAS has launched its online live general studies, prelims comes mains 2021 batch. One thing we need to understand, out of all this COVID pandemic or the crisis whichever is being going on, this is going to take some time for the government and the people to settle down. However, one thing we cannot stop is to move forward. Whatever might be the hurdles, the only thing which has led the humans to move forward is its human spirit. So in order to keep moving and in order to achieve our destiny, what we have planned on time, we have come up with this online live general studies classes, and with respect to admissions, you can call, SMS or WhatsApp on 90521 93939, or in Bangalore Chandra Layout branch you can call to at 9121412929. For Hyderabad, you can call 9052193939, and for Bangalore branch, you can call on 9121412929. So this was all about 25th June 2020, the Hindu newspaper analysis. I hope all of you are doing well. Take care of your health, study well, and let us move forward without stopping, and let us not stop at any cost. Thank you. Let us meet again. Till then, take care. Have a nice day.